So this is all about vintage cookbooks. Cookbooks from probably 1950 through the 1990s. And I'm just going to start with my family cookbooks that my grandmother wrote. And this was, I don't think, uncommon for the South and for maybe the Midwest and small communities where your grandmother would publish a cookbook, maybe do it themselves, or they had these mail-in places where you could pick out the format and they would lay it out for you. A lot of it was through churches. Church cookbooks were really popular as early or as late, I guess it's the 2000s. I still remember, people having all these family cookbooks and church cookbooks. I don't think that's a thing anymore. I know that certain insurance companies like Alpha, it's Alabama Insurance Company, they have cookbooks. So, I guess it depends on your region and what the local custom is there. But my grandmother was quite the Renaissance woman. She was a quilter. She was, of course, the greatest generation, lived during the war, worked during the war, was in Mobile, Alabama on D-Day. Of course, my grandparents fought in the war. Grandpas did that back then, obviously. And she was also one of the first few individuals to start the first cable network channel in North Alabama. She was an administrator well into her 70s for United Methodist Homes, like retirement homes, very, very livable, ethical, very much into human rights. So she managed basically retirement centers. Into her 70s, she brought civil rights to Faultville, Alabama, where she lived. She was on the school board and made sure that they hired the very first African American faculty member, a band member, band teacher, music teacher. And he basically was the conductor of the band. So she was very forward thinking and was always looking to sort of solve all the problems like that generation did, so their children, the baby boomers, would never have to worry about it. Even though her generation grew up with scarcity and lived through the Depression, their parents fought the First World War, which was tragic, and that's where we get the term shell shock from. That changed the face of human history and warfare as we know it. And then her generation went on to fight the Second World War, World War II, and in the Holocaust. She's also part of the larger group of women that first really pushed women's reproductive rights. So you'll probably see her picture. I'm going to get a picture of her and put it up here at the very beginning. When you have the still shot for the videos, the YouTube videos, that's her. Her name was Polly Winkles Holmes. And she did all these family cookbooks, Christmas memories. These are two different versions of this one. One I think was actually for one of the retirement homes. This was Wesley Acres, one of the Methodist retirement homes that she worked at. She managed, actually. And that was really rare for a woman of her generation to be head honcho, like the administrator that everyone answered to. I can't emphasize how rare that was, because she really was one of the first in this area in many ways. And yes, she's forgotten, as many people are who are first, or many people who do make changes. You don't go down in history, you're just kind of forgotten. So this was for Wesley Acres, and this was in 1986. I was still living in Tennessee. I was living up near the Smokies, Great Smoky Mountains. And of course, she was based in Alabama, North Alabama. But there's some other Edith Holmes. There's some other relatives in here. And a lot of these recipes, buttermilk pie, they're very, very Southern. There's two in here for buttermilk pie. So, and of course, that was a collection of the old folks at the time. A lot of these older than her, and she would have been in her early 60s, maybe late 50s. So these are some really pretty old recipes in here. These are like the World War I generation almost. Yeah, no, it would have been. This is, of course, the 94 one. I showed you that one, Christmas Memories. And of course, this is the one that you can see is dirty. I pull from it. This has some of recipes that are attributed to me that I liked as a kid. This has basically my grandmother's. I figured it out because she just did it by hand. So the measurements was not something she would have ever recorded, but her cornbread dressing. This is a Winkles family cookbook, and she came out with this in 1988. She compiled it all over the course of the 80s, had everyone send in their recipes, This has some really interesting stuff in here. It has my mother's vegetable soup, vegetable beef soup, Rosetta Holmes. Um, it has so many interesting things like sticky buns. It has cranberry salad, ambrosia, frozen ambrosia delight. Like that's not a Southern thing. Pickled shrimp. It's just, oh, how many of y'all have ever heard of Alabama white sauce? You know how every southern state has their basically barbecue sauce, their signature barbecue sauce. In North Alabama, it's white sauce, and it's a hit or miss. It's either a love or hate. And guess who can make it? Me. So, and that is something that is really good on actually chicken. More so, I think barbecue chicken or baked chicken. I don't like a lot of the red barbecue sauces because it's just, I don't know, I didn't grow up with it. Like I basically grew up with the white sauce. Now I figured this out. This is actually my grandmother's cornbread dressing and my take on the sweet potato casserole. And I have that typed up and I have it put in here. And after my grandmother passed, when everyone went to their own corners and people like the baby boomers just started doing Christmas at their house, I was the one who would make this for my family. So when she went into the retirement or the nursing home, she had dementia really bad. She was in her 80s at that point, lived to be about 91. And I'm the one who figured this out. And this is actually buttermilk cornbread dressing. Now in the South, it's called dressing. We don't call it stuffing. You know why? Because we don't stuff it up the turkey's asshole because that's really weird. So it's dressing in the South. And there's a lot of pralines. Pralines, yeah, y'all don't have that anywhere else, do you? But my grandmother's praline recipe. So there's a lot of good family Southern stuff in here. Goo cluster, how to make a goo cluster. Just a lot of homemade stuff. If y'all ever made homemade ice cream, it's interesting. It's a lot better than, you know, the store-bought stuff. A bread pudding with whiskey sauce. This was my Aunt Sarah's, my great Aunt Sarah's, her sister. So a lot of these recipes you can sort of find, in those gourmet cookbooks that they say they're Southern cooking. You can find them online somewhere, but if you don't have a family recipe, it's probably not going to be that good. And when something's in one of these recipe books says cornbread consistency, what does that mean? Do you know what that means? No. If you're outside the South, rather, you don't know what that means. You don't know what the cornbread consistency is because you actually have to mix it. You have to feel it with your hands. You have to actually mix the cornbread yourself. So it doesn't translate well. Just like measurements don't translate well. Some people like sage in the dressing. Some people don't. Some people like to use celery salt. Other people don't. It's very much by family thing. And if you go to one family Thanksgiving dinner or one family Sunday dinner, it's going to be completely and entirely different than another family's because they're passed down. And we're losing a lot of those recipes. Speaking of Southern recipes that we're losing, this was a gentleman, Russell Priest, is a very old cookbook that you cannot find anymore. Maybe you'll find it at a thrift store. This was the official cook of Hartselle Hospital back in the day in Hartselle, Alabama. And their cafeteria at the hospital was so good that it actually became kind of like a restaurant. Like people would go actually have Sunday dinner at the hospital. Of course, this was a mid-century and things were very different in the mid-century, but they used to smoke inside hospitals too. But this gentleman right here, this is all his recipes. And my grandmother knew him and got this for my mom. And he actually wrote a little message right here to my grandmother. And then she gave it to my mama. And she gave it to her in 92 for her birthday or anniversary. That's the 3rd of May. So, isn't that pretty? Cool. It is, I think so. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else in here you would like to know. I know a lot of you guys don't really give shit, especially if you're Gen Z and you may not be into this vintage stuff, but some kids are and some older people are going to remember this. I don't know about the millennials, people in their 30s. Do you remember any of this? But I'll just hold up just a random page. But cookbooks used to look like this. Like they were just that simple. There was no pictures and you bought them like that. Yeah, so this is actually an item that you definitely can't find anywhere anymore. And they just felt, I have a stack in my lap of a lot of these books. And, oh shit. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. This is the old Birmingham terminal station. The old, I guess, train station. And this fell out of one of these antique cookbooks from Birmingham. This is an antebellum home. Okay. I guess they were made by Birmingham artists. That's serendipitous. I wouldn't have known that was in there. And I think it comes from this one right here. Oh yeah, it would be the Newcomers Club of Birmingham, Alabama. So people were moving into Birmingham back in the day. All the suburbs. There was this white flight thing that was going on. If you know anything about the civil rights history, you can't study that in Birmingham, Alabama, and not come up. So we have right here a piece of history. This is 1993, so this is a little bit older. But the first copyright, it first came out in 1967. So this is pretty damn old. I mean, if you take into account, this is not the first printing, but if you take into account the first printing, and this must be the 1993, again, very, very Southern. Look at salads. You got the apricot salad and the broccoli salad. Broccoli raisin salad. And there's broccoli salad without raisins, because not everyone likes raisins. Sausage soup, sea soup, magnificent. Now that does somehow not sound very good, does it? But it probably is. It's probably a fancy Birmingham name for gumbo. But Birmingham always had this thing going on, Mobile, where they were always in competition, even though Montgomery is really the capital. So, let's see, pies and desserts, bananas Foster. That is actually really awesome, bananas Foster. I don't know if that's a thing anywhere else. I've traveled enough outside the South and across the pond to know that Southern recipes are really unique. Some people have heard of this stuff and some people have not. There's a lot of, in the mid-century, one thing that I really love that they used was apricot. A lot of apricots were used. A lot of gelatin, and I think that was just all over the United States. So broccoli cheese soup was very popular and is still one of my favorites, and I still make really good broccoli cheese soup. I'm trying to think. I actually make white chili. Do y'all make the white chili, not the red chili? You know, the chicken garlic chili. So there you go. And apparently this fell out of it. That is quite interesting. This is one of my grandmother's. Again, this is my grandmother's, and I got a lot of the stuff that, like cookbooks, because no one in my family wanted them. And I'm going to show, again, these are so random. Like, they used to have these, and you can see that's her signature. That's her name right there, Polly Holmes, for 20 cents. These little Pillsbury things that they would sell in the grocery store line where they have tabloids now. And they would have recipes like this. This is very mid-century. This is volume 2. Let me see if I can find a copyright date. I looked earlier and I don't think I found one. No, this is probably, I'm going to guess, this is maybe mid-century. So, yeah, this has a lot of the old photographs that you would see in the original Betty Crocker. And I'm going to show you a reprint of the Betty Crocker. I don't have my grandmother's. It was falling apart. But, like, jamborees, like, is that not mid-century right there? Crazy stuff. But yeah, this is just one of these little books. Oh, I remember these. Okay. Children, okay, I was born in 77, but they were still making these in the 1980s where I could remember them. Remember those little owl cookies? I don't know if anyone else remembers that. Christmas cookies. Now, this one is later. This one has to be around 90s. The 90s. Yeah, well, it says copyright 2001, but it's rather crude, so it's going to look older than what it is. So 1991, and these are just Christmas cookies. This was a very Southern thing where you just have a lot. You'd have a big old damn tray of cookies like every Christmas. It was insane, and I have done that. I have stayed up all day and all night baking cookies, like 6, 7 different kinds of fucking cookies for a Christmas tray. because someone whined that they didn't want a pumpkin pie. They wanted a cookie tray. They told my dad because he's a spoiled brat, because he's a boomer. So this is American Bake Off Pillsbury. This is, let's see if I can find a year on here, 1984. That's 2 years after my sister was born. Some older pictures. Just Pillsbury has always been a big name. Fantastic old photography, vintage photography. Just, oh, that's fantastic. Of course, they're not showing alcohol. This is during the 80s when everyone was having like the satanic panic. You don't remember that, do you? Well, you better study it because we're about to have another one. There you go. So, yeah. Teetotalers, man. So anyway, this is another one. This one actually came from Hills. This was Hills Pharmacy. I don't even know if they have those anymore. This is the Candy Maker, Wilton's Candy Maker, and it still has a price tag on there. My grandmother bought it. That's insane. The copyright is 1983. On the back of here, it's 1983. So this is hilarious. Oh my goodness. Brian and I, we moved here a couple years ago. Well, almost 4 years ago this spring. And we had put a lot of these up. So a lot of these were still packed away during Christmas. And we were going through all these old cookbooks. I had some of them out. A lot of them were still packed away. And it is just so funny to go through these and just see. And I have more. I'm only showing you just the ones that I thought were really kind of iconic. Now this is pretty flippin' old. These are, and I want to say this is, I don't know. I'm just going to hold them up. This is the second edition. This is the third edition. I don't know if she had the first. These are the favorite recipes of Alabama vocational home economics teachers. Yeah, that's not around anymore. So I'll start with the second edition. That was my grandmother's address, and which is no more. Chicken cutlets, old-fashioned chicken pie, fried chicken. This is just, here's an index of desserts. The South, we have the best desserts, don't we? Icebox pies. Have y'all ever had lemon icebox pie? It's really good. My aunt makes the best. My aunt in Memphis. I have an aunt who lives in Memphis, Tennessee. So yeah, this is just breads. To this day, we tend to make our own bread. We don't do a lot of store-bought bread. We make our own bread. So this is really fucking old. This one was even more intriguing right here. The third edition. Okay, we got a date. Shit. Grandma got this in 1969. I knew it was going to be missed. This one's older. This one's from probably a couple years older. That's from when, see, my mother graduated. My aunt and uncle were still in high school. At least my aunt and my uncle when this one came out. Wow. So that's really old. There was one in here. There was an interesting recipe that I was going to show you guys, and I hope I can find it. It was strawberry pretzel salad. Have y'all heard of strawberry pretzel salad? It used to be called bridal salad. I think it still is called bridal salad in some places. But yeah, there's a cornbread recipe. There's lots of cornbread. On one page, you had 2 cornbread recipes in here. And I was like, okay, how much? But, oh, squash casserole. Let's see. That's a little bit different than my squash casserole. Like, I'm really good at growing like squash and potatoes and stuff, even though I'm just doing pollinator beds now because too many vegetables, no one wants it. Egg custard pie. Egg custard, that's very Southern. I love a buttermilk pie. There was that's what it was. It was a buttermilk pie recipe in here. Cheese balls, cheese biscuits, congealed tuna fish loaf. If that's not mid-century and Southern. No, I'm going to show it to you. Look. That sounds really good, doesn't it? So yeah, there's just a lot of, if y'all are looking for any really weird recipes, like really kind of esoteric, just southern backwater recipes, let me know because I can probably find it. Orange slice cookies, peanut butter cookies, pecan drops. Of course, there's so many shrimp and grits, tuna and macaroni bake. Yeah, so there's a lot of things here, but there was a lot of. I remember opening up to one chocolate balls. Let's see what else is in here. Oh my gosh, I bet this is where she got that recipe. Sour cream pound cake. This is very popular in the South. My grandmother made this all the time, and I just found that. That's cool. Hmm. There's so many pound cake recipes in here. I mean, I'm still trying to find what I was going to show y'all. Oh, butternut cake. Lots of cakes. Lots and lots of cakes. Yeah, if you're looking for something, and like I said, I opened up to one page and there was like several custard pies, like buttermilk pie. Have y'all ever had buttermilk pie? I think some places call it chess pie. So that's interesting. Those are all the old local stuff, and I've still got some more like regional stuff, but we're going to talk right now about the American Heritage Cookbook, and this was something that I think she had just ended up with from the library of one of the places she worked, one of the retirement homes. And it just, I mean, it has it, but it does it. This is more just American, like more basically early American, as in early 20th century. Basically, the first copy right here is 1964. This one came out in 1980. So this is the American Heritage. So these are recipes from all over America. If you're just looking, like they have Boston beans, Boston baked beans, recipes from just all over the United States, little bits of information and history, ham baked in maple syrup, chicken salad, Brunswick stew, which Brunswick stew, we used to always make a lot of Brunswick stew. So yeah. Oh goodness, too many cookbooks. This is one that my grandmother got when she went on one of her trips for business, because remember, she was in administration and managing basically a couple of projects for Methodist homes. I don't even know, surely they're still around, but this is the Commander's Palace, the New Orleans cookbook. This is the famous restaurant actually in New Orleans. It's called Commander's Palace, and I don't know if they've shut down. I think I heard they closed. I would never want to eat here because it's really snobby. There's a lot of weird antebellum history attached with it. But this was a place for my grandmother's generation. This was kind of one of the things where everyone wanted to go eat. This was like, I don't know, I don't have something, an analogy for it for my generation, because there's no place that I can think, oh, I just really got to go eat there. I'm not like that. So, but then again, I'm a foodie, but I'm not a foodie. My husband's more of a foodie. I just happen to know how to cook because I'm Southern. So this one, my grandmother got this cookbook in November of 1990 and wrote about it in here in the sleeve of the cookbook. That's her handwriting. And I have handwriting like this because I think I'm the last generation that got cursive. So a lot of you wouldn't be able to read my handwriting. Yeah, this is the Methodist Homes meeting, and I'll just show you. Ooh, there's some beautiful sketches in here. I kept this simply because my aunt didn't want it. But again, this is never, I don't like the old antebellum Southern shit. That's just not me. But it's a piece of history, so I just sort of kept it and thought maybe there'll be someone I can pass it on to one day who will just see it as sort of a historical, just little piece of cook history or whatever. I don't know. Culinary history, there we go. Pigeon, grilled Louisiana pigeon. That just sounds really gross. But again, ooh, that's pretty. Ooh, no, it's not. They're shooting those poor ducks. But anyway, this is an interesting book. A lot of these recipes, eggs cordon bleu. I can make chicken cordon bleu. I mean, a lot of these things, even though I may not eat it, I can make it, and I have in the past. Turtle soup. Oh, hell, fuck no. Oyster soup with pastry dome. I do like raw oysters, but it's not safe to eat them anymore because of the rising temperature and sea levels, rising temperatures and seas, all that jazz. Yeah, I wouldn't be eating oysters raw anymore. Oysters Commander. So there's a lot of oyster recipes in here. I mean, it's southern. Crawfish. Do y'all eat crawfish? Some parts of the South, they call them mud bugs. Mud bugs. I don't know if that's a common name, but I've just always called them crawfish. Mint julep. I just covered a mint julep in the other video. I do not like mint juleps. Everyone in the damn South likes mint juleps. I think they're gross. Maybe I haven't had a good one. Maybe that's just it. Lemon crepes. Now, I do like crepes. You know, they're a little bit more European, and they're not as heavy as eating like a pancake. I don't like to eat heavy buttermilk pancakes. Veal with oyster dressing. Like Louisiana cooking, like deep South cooking like this, it is, I'm talking deep South. It is very rich. I mean, it is very rich. And I don't eat that way, and I don't cook that way. My cooking tends to be more North Alabama or Appalachia, so because I'm kind of on the cusp. But yeah, this is a very beautiful cookbook. It is vintage. It is old. It's the people who work at Commander's Palace, they're really snotty. I think the current owners are even snotty. I've been to New Orleans several times, of course. It's not that far, but I have no desire to go back. There's a lot of issues with the city right now. And like I said, I've been on that street. I've even walked in and seen like the interior, but I've never wanted to actually eat there or patron that place. This is a Cala cookbook. Brian and I got this when we went on a vacation. It was our last vacation we ever went on in 2019. And this is a family cookbook from an island in Florida called Cala. And it's not inhabited now. It's just, I think, a preserve. But this was one of the families that lived on this island. And we saw this. It was the last one, and we just grabbed it up because it has really good things like Thanksgiving turnip casserole and Southern style green beans. Has lots of pictures from the island. We fell in love with this island. We actually were here, and it has key lime pie, which is one of my favorite pies. Key lime pie. I like to grow citrus. Of course, they're in the garage right now because it's really too cold for them. We're just too far north to have citrus outside, but I grow lemon and lime. I have lemon and lime trees. Southern style green beans. I just said that one. Sea mustard soup. Egg turtles. I would not eat a turtle. I just can't do that. Yeah, there are lots of things I just can't eat. But of course, a lot of this, of course, is going to be seafood. And family pictures of this family. This is just a really cute cookbook. If you go to, I don't even know if they have it anymore, University of Tampa Press. You could probably contact the University of Tampa. We paid $15 for it. Sticker's still on the back of it. But it's a Cala cookbook. I think it's pronounced Cala, maybe it's Cala, but recipes from a Florida lifetime. And it's compiled by her granddaughters. But it's about Myrtle, who lived on the island. Myrtle, who lived on that island for a long time, most of her life. But wouldn't that be nice? I feel like I missed something by being born too late in the 20th century and then living in the 21st century. Weird times. My grandmother's generation won a lot of rights, and now they're being taken away. So this is actually the it's called Quilters in the Kitchen from the Birmingham Quilters Guild. And this is a cookbook that I got back, I think, in 2017. And I got this because I started quilting a little bit, and I made like a couple of things. My grandmother was a big quilter, but this was being sold there, and I think it was $20, copyright 2013. And I grabbed it up and I said, oh yeah, I'll buy that because I like to collect these things. It's broken down by tabs. This is now 10 years old, which is weird to think about. Has helpful hints throughout it like that. It has breads, main dishes, cookies, candies, this and that. There's actually a section called this and that, which is so fun. So yeah, buttermilk biscuits. right below Angel Biscuits. That all sounds very Southern, doesn't it? It's hilarious. But yeah, this is Birmingham Quilters Guild, and it's they have soups in here. So the best French onion soup, which that's one thing I remember my mama making a lot, was French onion soup. I don't know if that's a big one everywhere else, but yeah, I just remember that. So the last two, and this has been a super long video, so if you're still here, I'm impressed. So this is the reprint of the Betty Crocker, and I want to say this was probably reprinted in the late 90s, 2000s. And this is the reprint of the original Betty Crocker, not the same cover. Of course, the cover was different. My dad actually found this in perfect condition. I've since messed it up because I've cooked with it. He found this in perfect condition at a library sale. The Homewood Library had this sitting on a rack of books outside for sale. And he grabbed it up with some vintage dictionaries, all of which I looked up online, and they're going for a lot of money now. So you can see I've put my own tabs right here in this. And oh, by chocolate syrup. Gee, go figure. What did I tab? But yeah, it has these old vintage pages, and it has some of the original graphics, which again, this was not printed recently, and nor would it be, but it was printed. Oops, something just slid out. It was printed late enough and early enough where the conjunction was that it does have some of the original graphics. And this is the start of a new tab, the start of cookies, and I'll just show you what that looks like. So if you can find, you may want to find a copy of this on eBay. I'm sorry, eBay and Abe's Books. So yeah, it has meats. It has the original pictures, like the test kitchen, because Betty Crocker actually had a test kitchen where they did all that. So it does have the original test kitchen book pictures. I'm getting tongue-tied. This is going way too long. And I don't edit. I've been a teacher, so when you're a teacher, you just keep going. You just keep going. You don't worry about it. You don't have time to worry about it. Okay, so there's a soup section. Oyster bisque. Have y'all ever had oyster bisque? I've had lobster bisque and oyster. I've had every kind of bisque because I'm Southern. But this has a lot of really cool things in it. It has, of course, Betty Crocker was, American just in general. Yeah. It just has recipes. I'll show you one more page, but I had tabbed it. I had tabbed all these pages, and I don't know why I had. Huh. I have no idea why I tabbed what I did. Some of it I didn't make. A lot of it I did though. Yeah, this is actually showing. This is actually showing the test kitchen right here. This is so cool. See, so I have this weird fascination with the mid-century historians out there. I know there's one historian that I talked to on here. I have this weird fascination with the architecture, modernism. I like the modern literature. I like just that, when you're talking about the mid-century, like after World War II until about like early 70s, I think is when they really consider like the true mid-century, especially when you're talking about the space race, because my husband's a physicist. Huntsville, Alabama is just an hour north. And if you don't know that we built the Saturn V rocket up there or any history of the mid-century, I'm sorry the educational system failed you. But this is a part of history that for some reason people my age didn't really get in school. I guess they thought our parents would tell us about it. But even though the boomers lived it, they don't really, their memories are so fractured into what class they lived in. And of course, you break that down by race, you get into a lot of weird, interesting, and really sad social dynamics. So I would love to have a conversation about the mid-century and all the dynamics and how it was the future we should have had. There were a lot of things, a lot of progress that was really being made, the civil rights movement, but we've taken several steps back since then, thanks to starting in the Nixon era, and I'm not going to go there because I don't like to talk about that on this channel. Cotton Candy Cookbook. Anyone from the South, this was the quintessential Southern cookbook. This was the one that you had to have, right? And this is not the original. My mother had the original, and my sister's cat peed on it because my sister's cat got mad at my mom and peed on this cookbook. This actually was published originally in Decatur, Alabama by the Junior League of Morgan County and would become, which is where my grandmother lived. And, you know, she, again, was quite the character and a go-getter in that area of the country. And this was one of the cookbooks that went all over the South that was known for the recipes in there. There's everything from cheese grits souffle to garlic cheese grits. Grits are really big here. I don't know if they're big anywhere else. I know a lot of the peoples in other regions of the United States have heard of shrimp and grits. Well, that's where it originated, even though that was more of a coastal thing. Just grits in general are a southern thing from like Appalachia down to the coast. But it really does, like what you dress it up with really does depend on the region. And that's peanut butter pie. Peanut butter pie is one of my favorite. I like too many pies. I like all different types of pies. I like pies, I think, better than cakes. So, and it has some, wow, okay, looky here. All these people are probably dead, and that's going to be really depressing. So yeah, this was one of the, and it still is, Post Office of Mooresville, Alabama. Look at this picture. Yeah, that's mid-century. You can tell that she's wearing the little sheath dress. And just, yeah. Moores, Alabama is a really neat, historic-looking town. See if there's anything else I can mention in here. There's carrot cake. My grandmother used to make really good carrot cake. It's really hard to find people who can make really, really, really good carrot cake. Seafood is really big in the South. Cornish hens. Okay, so this was probably the recipe she used, but we used to make Cornish hens at Thanksgiving, sometimes instead of doing a turkey. Hey, this has gone on for damn 40 minutes. I'm going to end it here. If there are any sort of weird recipes that you're interested in, or you have any questions about recipes, I would love to try to see if I can find an answer. Because I have all these resources, and if I don't know the answer, I'm sure someone around here does. Wow, this is like 37 minutes. Okay. So have a beautiful day. It's about to rain. I'm sorry if it looks overcast. I hope that you're staying warm and dry where you're at. And much love to everybody out there.